Hey guys, welcome back to another Let's Play in KSP. Just going to do a quick one today. This is the first time that I've actually ever built my own. I'm hoping that the audio stays sunk because usually sometimes when you click on a different building or go to launch or something, it screws it up. So we're just going to build a quick thing. I'm not even sure if it's going to get into orbit. Maybe that'll be like our kind of end goal, but we just want to lob it and see if we can re-enter without killing anybody. So we're going to want... There's our command pod there, and so we're going to put a control, or not a control, a heat shield on there. Is that structural? I think that's aerodynamic. Yep. Okay, heat shield. Perfect. And we're going to want a parachute right there. Okay, so this is what's going to come back. I'm not going to bother with any landing legs or anything. I moved into my new apartment. The AC's going over there, so hopefully you guys aren't hearing that too much. Do we want to put this into orbit? Yeah, let's put it into orbit. So here's what we'll do for... Let's do this. Well, actually, what am I thinking? First, we want to do this. So that way we can decouple everything, and the only thing that's come back in is the pod with the parachute. Okay, where do we put... There it is. So we're going to put a monopropellant tank there. And we want to go to control. And we're going to put 4 of these RCS burners on. Or RCS motors, I guess is what they'd be called. RCS thruster, that's the word. Okay, and then we're going to put just a small engine on the bottom. We definitely want it to vector pretty well, so we're going to use this swivel LVT45 engine. Actually, let's see what a vector engine's going to do, because it'll give it... Well, I think that might be too much, because these vector engines give you a lot of controllability, but this one... let's see, max thrust 200 kilonewtons, and this one gives 1,000 kilonewtons. So we probably just want this smaller engine here because too much thrust is just gonna throw this thing apart. I know that this engine was too small when I was just playing around. So okay, let's do another. We're gonna want to do a decoupler next. Which is going to be in structural, I think is where we found it. Yep. Cool. So there's the decoupler. And now let's bring this whole thing up, because now we're going to put on seems probably a little backwards. Maybe not, I don't know. We're going to put on a fairing, or just around this whole thing. Oop, nope, there we go. Okay, and there. So I think that's pretty much sealed up there. So I just want to make sure our staging is correct. So we'll ditch the fairing first, and then, yeah, because we can ditch the fairing in the atmosphere, just at the top of the atmosphere, and then we'll decouple the whole thing. Then we can fire that engine. Then we decouple everything, and we're just the command module. Okay, perfect. So we don't need a decoupler next because we've already taken care of that. So let's get. I want this red fuel tank. Let's do 2 of them. I think that should be fine. And let's put some vector engines down here. So I want to do 3 of them probably. So we'll grab this, pop that there, and let's put these vector engines on and limit the gimbal to, yeah, 32 is fine. Don't want to mess with it too much. Just make sure, yep, did all 3. I want to limit the gimbal, otherwise it sways all over the place. If you only had 1 down here, then a full gimbal would be fine, I think, but with all 3 of them, that's too much. Okay, so let's check the staging. So that fires, yep, and then in the upper atmosphere we can ditch the fairing, and then we already checked all that. Okay, so I don't think that this is actually going to be enough to get it off the pad. Let me scroll out a little bit here. So we're going to need, let's put on 4 boosters. Why not? 4 boosters. 4 boosters, there we go. And let's also put some fins down here. Let's take care of the boosters first. Let's finish this train of thought. I don't want the huge boosters. Let's just do these kind of smaller ones. Put those there, and we're gonna want a little hat for them. This is actually looking pretty similar to the one in the start menu. If I remember, I'll put a picture of it here, but I'll probably forget. But yeah, if you play KSP, you've seen it. It's the other fuel tanks. It doesn't use the red tanks. I think it's all pretty much this size. So they must use also the smaller boosters, I guess, because this looks almost to scale to that one, and these boosters, you know, obviously if they're using these tanks, then these boosters would be too big. I hope I've got it to where the mouse is showing on screen, otherwise you're not going to be able to see what I'm pointing at all the time. Alright, so I'll put these fins in between the boosters, and one thing that I've learned when dealing with these boosters is, especially if you're in a turn when you ditch them, it's nice to have these little engines that just basically pull them away. Well, they do whatever you want them to, but I'm going to no, not move them. I'm going to rotate them like this. Nope, come on. Come on, there we go. What do I do? 1, 2, 3 turns. And now we're going to move these ones up a little bit to kind of match. There. I think they're pretty much matched. Yep. Perfect. And if it's not perfect, that's perfect enough for me. And so I think the last thing we're going to do is put some struts here, and that'll kind of keep them from wobbling a little bit. And then we're going to put these launch, whatever they're called, put those there. Okay, so let's just recap. Let's just check the staging. So those release, and we want the boosters to fire at the same time. The boosters are here, so we're going to move them down, and we definitely don't want these to go off yet. We want them to go off when we decouple. So we'll put these 4 up with the decouplers, and the other 4 also up with the decouplers. So that'll decouple the booster and fire these two tiny rocket, these two tiny rocket engines, and that'll help peel the boosters away. But we don't want to use just the boosters. We want these engines to fire as well when we separate everything. So I think this will work. We're about to find out. Alright, so I just sunk again. I don't know how I'm going to edit that together, so I just explained what I did there. Oop, hit shift too many times. I got sticky keys. Okay, so we're going to put the vector engines to full power. I'm going to bring it up to 100 meters a second with the vector engines and then pull them back a little bit, SAS on, and let the boosters kind of do most of the work until we get up past max 2. So we'll hit space here, and she's firing away. Very good. Alright, there's 100 meters a second, so we'll pull them back down. Pretty low power just to save some fuel, especially if those boosters are doing their work. I'm sure if you get too low of acceleration, then it kind of bogs it down. I'm sure that's not helpful. But here we are at about 2,000 meters. I'm going to start turning it just a little bit. Just a bit. Started it moving towards the east, because that's the way the planet rotates. So we're taking advantage of, on Earth anyway, at the equator, it's rotating at 1,000 miles an hour. Which I don't remember how many meters. I think if you double meters per second, you get knots, and a knot is just those boosters, and we're starting to lose velocity, so we'll bring these vector engines up. Okay, and a knot is almost about 100 knots is 115 miles an hour, so about 2,000 meters a second, give or take, at the equator, if I've remembered all that correctly. So basically just that much of a boost that you don't have to put into the system. If you go the other way, then you're fighting. You have to basically speed up to 1,000 miles an hour to get to 0, and then go into orbit after that. So it's a really bad idea to go westbound. I think. Is it westbound? I think it's westbound. From the equator. Now, if you launch them at high latitudes, then it's not as big of a deal. But I still, I think I'm at the 49th. What's the... Okay, let me do this real quick. This is really unstable. We want fuel in the top tank. Was it the 49th parallel? Is that the... Something's important about the 49th parallel, and I should probably know it. Alright, let's cut the engines off, because we're going up pretty high at this point. We can ditch the fairing. So we're pretty much in space. We are in space now. Alright, let's take a look where our apoaps is, and we can pull this out a little bit. Get us our maneuver node, and I want to do it. Where's that? Yeah, that'll be fine. Don't want to do a whole lot. I can turn on the RCS as well. Don't want to do a whole lot with the small engine if we can help it, because I don't actually know how much thrust or delta V that's going to give us. So I'm just letting this line up real quick. We've got 4 minutes to the node, and we're not going to sit here for all that. So let's time warp it a little bit. Alright, just gotta watch that. There's 1 minute, so stop the time warp. Okay. And we'll give it pretty much full power, because that's what the burn is requiring. And you're supposed to start at halfway, hopefully that makes sense for those of you who play KSP. If it's 16-second burn, you want to start it at T-minus 8 seconds, and that way you get half on either side of the node, and that's kind of the most accurate thing you can get. I didn't do that exactly, but I'm pretty sure we're in orbit at this point. So I'm going to turn off... Oh, never mind. Yep, we are in orbit. And we want to come down... I don't really care where we come down as long as it's on the day side, so somewhere over here. So let's get to the... Let's get over here, probably, and start... bringing it back. Oop, 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 oop. Okay. Now we're working on the re-entry right now. I think this will work. 42,000 meters, and the apoapse is 200. Let's pull it back a little bit. Let's shoot for like 35,000 probably. Perfect. 32. Close enough. We're gonna warp to maneuver. Oop. Maybe. Nope, oh, nope, come on. Nope, that's not what I wanted either. Why is it not letting me do this? Huh, whatever, let's just warp. I'll just do it manually. So, we're swinging it around the planet, and it's slowed my time warp down already because I've descended enough. So, we're at 50 times, and we're getting real close here, so we're going to do 1 time, so real time, basically. And we've got T-minus 34 seconds, and it's just a quick burn, so it shouldn't be too big of a deal. But we'll put RCS on... Nope, not retrograde, which... It's almost retrograde, but we're going to put on the maneuver node, because that's what we're set up to do. Which by the time we get there should be exactly retrograde, because that's what I did on the maneuver node. But we'll see. Alright, we're pretty much lined up. 12 seconds. We'll start our burn now. Oop. We'll start a light burn now, I guess. That's going to just use the big tank. It looks like we didn't even have to tap into the small tank at all. We'll just ditch that on the way in. If we wanted to do any maneuvering or like adjusting of the orbit, we'd use the small engine, but we're not. We're just going up for fun and then bringing it back down. We're going to do like, what is that, 1 lap around the planet? It's pretty much all we're going to do. Okay, and we have achieved that. So let's just ditch this big tank. It'll probably burn up. Alright, so that's actually that's a good thrust to weight ratio, I think. Let's get rid of this maneuver node so we can actually see what we're doing here. Periaps of 27,000. That'll probably be okay. Let's just bring it in. Let's ditch it. I'm going to commit at this point. Let's ditch the... Let's wait till we're on the day side so we can see it go. But we're going to ditch the fuel tank and engine. Ready? Goodbye. Alright, we're going to turn this thing retrograde. And once you get it kind of retrograde, then you have to just kick it off. Otherwise it keeps doing, watch, keeps doing that. And I don't know why. So we just put it on stability assist and do it manually, pretty much right on the retrograde node. So we are officially in the atmosphere. Not very much, though. So we're going to put on full time warp because I don't want to sit here and watch this whole thing. So we've got this heat shield. Is it obliterating yet? Not even close. Alright, there's 55. We don't really actually get a whole lot of resistance until somewhere around 50,000 meters. Yep, see, there's the plasma trails start to show up, the heat trails, whatever you want to call them. I think they're actually plasma, you know, in real life. But so we'll put this back to real time, and we're going to do this a little bit to help get a little bit of lift so we don't come plummeting through the atmosphere. We pretty much are anyway, but that's no big deal. I think with that heat shield, and we're only going 24,000 or 2,400 meters a second. It's not really a huge deal. Without that heat shield, we may be having a different talk. I think just the capsule can re-enter depending on how fast you're going. And this isn't a full re-entry because our maneuver node, our periaps was 27,000 meters, so it's not like we were arcing straight down to the ground. If there were no atmosphere, we'd still be in orbit, but because there's so much atmosphere, actually let's take a look at the apoapse. Yeah, see, it's coming down. So right now, like if the atmosphere just disappeared, we'd go, you know, up to 120 meters, 120,000 meters. But this thing is slowly pulling us down. Periaps is 12, 10, so hopefully we'll probably end up crashing. Hopefully, I'm just trying to make it to land, but we may have gone too soon for land. We should have probably held it up in the atmosphere a little bit, or only brought the periaps down to like 30,000, or yeah, 30,000 meters. That's alright. So we're burning up, and this heat shield, we're not burning up, that was misspoke. We've got the fire coming off, but yeah, this heat shield's pretty much stabilized. I mean, there's no way that thing's going to burn up now. See, we're just passing through 32,000 meters at 2,100 meters per second, and we're not diving super hard in the atmosphere. We're probably going, you know, we're just past this 100, but it gets exponential, so we're probably going somewhere around 500 meters per second straight down, maybe 400, somewhere in there. So yeah, just watching it now. We're under 30,000 meters, which is good. We're still not, if you look up at the top here, I think 20,000 meters is where you start getting into the kind of, from the super dark blue to the light dark blue, and then the light blue is obviously towards the surface. But we're under 2,000 meters a second, and then it starts going real quick, especially as we get down into this thicker atmosphere, which is taking, you know, a little while. But there's 25,000 meters. As soon as we hit about 20 is usually when this thing, I'm pretty sure, starts really slowing down super fast. We're pulling about, what, 1G, just over 1G, and slowing down, so, you know, it's not huge deceleration right now. If you hit this lower atmosphere, if you see that needle's moving at the top there down, I think 20,000 meters is where it hits the kind of that new color, and it looks like right, maybe a little bit lower, looks like right there. So about 19,000 meters, I guess, is where it goes into kind of the little bit lighter blue. But we're almost 1,000 meters a second, and we're in this kind of light dark blue, so it's yeah, you can hear it there too. Ooh, and look at our G meter, came way up, so that's some real good deceleration there. So we're just going to time warp it down to the ground, because I don't want to sit here and watch this whole thing. We're 600 meters a second, 500 meters a second, and now we're falling. Pretty good clip at falling. Alright, so there's 3,000 meters. I put it back to single time, and there's 235 meters a second. We should be able to deploy the parachute with no problem now. And we're slowing down at 1,000 meters. It'll open up, and sure enough, it's opening up. Come on, open up, slow. There we go. See it? We pulled a lot of G's there for a second, and now we're down to 10 meters a second. So let's time warp this thing for the last 250 meters. And so it hovers around between 5.5 and 6.5 meters a second, looks like, on the way down. And almost there. Jettison the heat shield. Splash down. And I jettisoned it. You can see it floating away there. And the parachute is also gone now. So Babur Kerman. I don't know why I added the D there. Babur Kerman appears to have... Oh, look at that. Now he's floating in midair. But he appears to have lived. Congratulations. And that'll be it for this video. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. That's all I got.